I want to thank everybody for coming today. It's a pleasure to have everybody here. This is a historic day for the United States, really for the world, and particularly for Kansas, and even more particularly for Topeka, Kansas. Today was the day that the Brown versus Board of Education case was decided, the federal case that ended segregation, legal segregation in the United States, and the case originated here. Happy to have a couple members of the Brown family here, which is great to have you folks here and participating. I've got a proclamation that I want to read, and it's a heartfelt one, and it's a bit difficult. Kansas has had this great history with the African American community, and particularly on the issue of slavery, because we started the Civil War, and it was because people here couldn't stand the idea that one person could own another. But unfortunately, following on the heels of that, somewhat later, we went ahead with segregation and Jim Crow laws as a state, as official policies of the state of Kansas, and that was allowed to continue until the Supreme Court ruled against it. We've never officially acknowledged and apologized for that, and that's what I'm doing today in signing this proclamation. If you would, I'd like to read this proclamation. The people of Kansas, greetings. Whereas the origin and history of the United States is a contrast between the shining promise of liberty and freedom and the shadow legacy of slavery and oppression. And whereas out of a brutal struggle, Kansas was born a free state, an inspiration to all those who believe that every person, regardless of race, gender, or creed, is born free. And whereas the character of Kansas was forged by many people, prominent among them the brave African Americans who established the town of Nicodemus, and the freed African American slaves who found their way to Kansas in the first great post-Civil War migration as exodusters. We even have a federal judge in Kansas who's in the lineage of exodusters. They were looking for the freedom promised by the abolitionist origins of Kansas. And whereas despite the bright origins of Kansas, the victory in the Civil War, and the goals of the 13th Amendment, the unfortunate and tragic result for these African American citizens of our state was an oppressive society, denying them the right to fully and equally participate in the very state they called home through the evil of segregation and Jim Crow laws. And whereas nearly a century after the end of legal slavery in the United States, lawsuits were brought echoing the abolitionist calls of our state's true origin in demanding an end to the separate but equal education system in Kansas, followed in 1954 by the landmark Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court case. And whereas segregation was legally ended in Kansas but never formally apologized for by the state of Kansas for its disgraceful part in the hateful practice and the destructive impact it had on our African American citizens. And whereas it is important for the citizens of Kansas to at last move forward to seek reconciliation, justice, and harmony, that we as a state formally apologize for the oppression and Jim Crow laws that followed on the heels of slavery. Now, therefore, I, Sam Brownback, Governor of the State of Kansas, on behalf of the State of Kansas and all its people, do hereby acknowledge the wrong of segregation and its injustice, cruelty, brutality, inhumanity, and disgraceful impact and legacy. Furthermore, I formally apologize to the African Americans of Kansas who were subjected to its dehumanizing nature and harm, and recommit our state to the principle that all people are created equal, and call upon the people of Kansas to join together so that we work towards eliminating racial prejudices, injustices, and discrimination from our society. And I'm signing that here at the State Capitol today on the anniversary day of Brown versus the Board of Education. Deborah, you're a representative of the...
Yes, I'm the chair of the Kansas African American Commission, and on behalf of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission, we thank you, Governor, for your public acknowledgement of the second-class citizenship African Americans experienced from 1861 to the momentous 1954 U.S. Supreme Court decision Brown versus Board. But more importantly, you have our heartfelt appreciation for recognizing the need for our beloved state to address views and conditions that allow racial inequality and injustice to persist today. Indeed, the Commission looks forward to working with you to make Kansas a place where all of its peoples enjoy our nation's creed of freedom and equality for all. Thank you. Thank you.